Every time we buy a lottery ticket, we're being told that we're helping education here in Michigan. But are we really? That's the big question. So recently in 2026, Governor Whitmore announced that in 2025, the Michigan Lottery contributed over $1.1 billion to the Michigan Education Fund. Now that sounds like a lot of money, right? Well, it is a lot of money. The other thing is, she reports that for the last 7 years, they've contributed over $1 billion towards our kids' education. So my biggest question is, where's all the money going? Now, since 1972, the lottery has contributed over $30 billion to the Michigan Education Fund. Now, I remember my kids now, who are 26 and 24, I remember when they were in grade school, we would get these long lists of supplies that the school every year would ask parents to bring in. It was erasers, toilet paper, Kleenex, pencils, pens, markers. And I'm willing to bet you parents still have a list. Maybe it's just as long, maybe it's shorter, but you parents still have a list that your kid's school asks you to bring to help supply the things that the school district should be supplying, correct? Another thing that became common was pay to play with regards to sports. Now, previously when I was a kid, whenever I entered into a sporting activity through my high school, they paid for everything: uniforms, transportation, anything that pretty much we needed to support that particular program. But that isn't happening anymore. And yet all of these billions of dollars is supposed to support our kids' education. It's time that we start asking, where is all this money really going? We need some transparency here. Here is the breakdown of where the lottery money went. When a winner wins the big jackpot, Michigan pays that winner 63% of the proceeds of what's in that jackpot. Then 25% goes towards the Michigan Education Fund, 9% go towards the vendors and the people who sell the tickets as their commission, and then 3% go towards administrative costs for the lottery commission. So let's back it up. In 2023, 61% of the total jackpot went towards the winners, and 27% went to the Michigan Education Fund. But as you see from 2023 to 2025, that percentage decreased by 2%. Now, if you're anything like me, I think that the kids really need the money more so than any of the other three listed. So that means either the winners could continue to take 61% instead of 63%, or the lottery commission could take a point less, and perhaps maybe the vendors could take a point less. But instead, they chose to take 2 percentage points away from our kids. So that's something that we really should be questioning. Is our kids' education a top priority? Now, furthermore, this is what Whitmer says, and I quote, "We're connecting our kids with the tools they need to learn, grow, and thrive, whether they're pre-K or they're in their senior year." She goes on to say that this includes record per pupil funding of more than $10,000 per student in every school, giving students free breakfast and free lunch, which then in turn saves their parents up to somewhere around $1,000 per kid. She also goes on to say that there has been record investments into our kids' ability to read through the education program. Well, I don't see that as being the whole truth, and I'll tell you why. According to the NAEP, the National Assessment of Education Progress, they state that 37% of our students, our 12th graders, do not read and comprehend what it is they are reading. So in other words, they may read a book or they may read a paragraph, but there may be words in that paragraph that perhaps they can pronounce, but they don't necessarily know what those words mean. Thereby, they don't truly understand the book or the paragraph that they read. So what's the whole point? That's reading comprehension. We don't just want our kids to learn how to read words, we want them to be able to comprehend what they are reading. The NAEP also states that, get this, in Michigan, we have actually broken a record, but it's not a good record. 32% of our seniors scored below the national average for reading comprehension. And that they set a record for. That percentage has never been that high. So here we are, we're giving record amounts of money to the schools, Michigan School Aid Fund, but yet our kids are failing with regards to reading and in other areas as well, mathematics. And mathematics is so important, not just for your future career, but it's also good to know mathematics when you're budgeting. If our kids don't really understand numbers, how can they truly understand how to budget once they do get out into the world and they earn an income? So I said all that to say this. There are things that Governor Whitmer is not telling us. This is something that I, and possibly you, have already suspected. And that is, not all of the funds that go into the Michigan Education Fund is being used to support our kids' education. So the question is, why not? Why is this fund called the Michigan Education Fund if all of those funds, 100% of those funds, are not being allocated to our students' education? Now, Robert McCain, he is the executive director of the K-12 Alliance of Michigan. Now, he comes clean and he says, well, not all of the funds that go into the Michigan Education Fund actually is used to support our kids' education as we have been led to believe. Now, he advocates the best he can for our children to receive every dollar that they deserve. But the legislators, for some reason, have decided that a portion of the Michigan Education Funds should be allocated to take care of other things in the state's budget. So in other words, they're dipping into a fund that should be used entirely to support our kids' education to pay for other obligations. But the problem is they're not being transparent. They're not making it fully known what are these other obligations and how many dollars of these from these other obligations are we taking from the Michigan Education Fund to pay for these other obligations. What's more important than our kids' education? The other thing is, when our legislators and our leaders, the ones that we appoint in office, when they start taking funds away from our kids, but yet they're telling us that these funds are going towards our kids' education and leading us to believe that 100% of it is going towards our kids' education, from my perspective, they're being purposefully deceptive. Because perhaps maybe as parents, we wouldn't agree with where those additional funds are going. So when the waters are murky like that, it makes it very easy for funds to be abused and misused. Now, there's a lot of schools out here, a lot of school districts, not just in struggling school districts, but out in the suburbs as well, who don't have enough money and resources to take care of our students. They don't have all of the supplies that our students need, which is the reason why parents are asked to, either give money to help support purchasing those supplies or actually physically have their students bring the supplies in because the schools can't afford to buy them. So that's number one. The other thing is, are there enough programs in our schools to help the students who really need it most? Not just your student, but what about the other students that have special needs? What about the special needs program? Do we have enough of those in place? Are they fully funded? Because for what I've seen and heard, they are not. We have a lot of kids out there who are being born with difficulties that students in the past haven't had to face. And so our schools are not equipped to really support those students the way that they should be. There's a lot of mental health issues that our children are facing today that we, in my generation and the generations before, didn't necessarily have to deal with. So in addition to that, we have students who are born with autism. And there's not a lot of resources and programs in our schools to help support those students and teachers. So again, what's more important than our students? What could you possibly be spending the money on that is more important than our precious kids? The same kids that some of our tax dollars, those of us who are homeowners and those of us who are landlords, we pay into the education system via our property taxes. So not only are you taking property taxes to help fund the schools, and you're using supposedly lottery money to support the schools, why then don't we have all of the necessary tools and equipment needed to help support our kids' education? That means every school equally, not just some schools, the ones where the parents can afford to pay a little bit more to make sure their kids get a better education, not the private schools. We're talking about our public schools. Every public school should be afforded, every student in every public school should be afforded the same education, whether they're in an inner city or whether they're in the suburbs. As Americans, we need to start demanding transparency from the officials that we elect to serve us in our communities. Now, the way that our government has handled the government's finances are absolutely horrendous. Right now, America is $38 trillion in debt. Now, these politicians, the ones that we've put in office, the decisions that they're making financially have been detrimental to our society financially. They absolutely have shown that they do not know how to spend, they do not know how to allocate funds in a certain box and keep it there. If the funds that we have coming into the Michigan Education Fund was designed to support our children, no other funding, none of that funding should be used to fund other projects. Now let's look at it in your own personal budget. If you have a certain box that you put all of your money in to pay for your mortgage, you have a certain box that you put all of your money in to support your electricity bill, your heating bill, whatever it may be. Then you have another box for your food. Each of those boxes are important, and your funds should be allocated such that each of those boxes are funded properly in order to support the needs of each of those boxes. Well, what our government is doing is they're saying, well, yeah, we got this box, but you know what? We're underfunded in these other two boxes, so we're just going to take from our kids' education and fund these other boxes that we feel are just as important or maybe even a little bit more important. Now, if we handled our own personal finances that way, what would happen? If we pulled money from the box that is designed to pay for our mortgage, then guess what? Our mortgage is not going to get paid on time, and we're going to fall in debt, right? Well, this is what our politicians are doing. And the way that we can do a better job as the American people is to stop looking at whether they're Democrat or Republican. I don't care about that. What I care about is, what is your track record? Are you a woman or a man of your word? Do you truly, truly want to serve the people that you're trying to lead? Or is it all about you filling your pockets? Because I can guarantee you that none of these politicians handle their personal finances the way that they handle the government's finances. Because if they did, they would all be personally broke, just like our government. $38 trillion in debt. Absolutely ridiculous. Who's working on that? So, as you all listen to me today, I think that we as a people have a responsibility to start asking bigger questions. Let's start asking, why are we giving our students 2% less of the lottery funds? There's enough lottery money to go around. I'm sure the winners, like myself, if I ever won, would be willing to take 61% instead of 63% and give that extra 2% to the kids' college. And I'm willing to bet that maybe even some of us will be willing to give a little bit more because we care about the kids, we care about their future. So let's do ourselves a favor overall, and let's start looking more carefully at the politicians that we vote into office. Let's make sure that on every level, we're looking at the individual, the track record of the individual, as opposed to arguing and fighting over political nonsense. You know, I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican. Are you there to serve the people? And if the answer is no, then you don't get my vote. It's simple as that. So I want you all to drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you feel about this Michigan Education Fund and the way that it's being funded, and the way, more importantly, that the money is being distributed. I want to know what you have to say. So if you like my content, like and subscribe to Financial Fix with Sharnella, and I will see you on the next episode.